Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we are looking at the creepiest movie monsters. Over to Robbie.
Yes, so we thought we'd take a look at some of our favourite movie monsters, creatures that creep us out, kind of some of our favourite monster villains, maybe. Yeah. Not so much... for me, not so much living, I would say, but some of our kind of creepiest creatures or creepiest monsters, a little bit about the movie itself and kind of why we find them so creepy. Yeah. So as always, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. It helps us to grow, motivates us. And it's always good to get feedback. So whenever we do one of these features, we leave it up to our kind of interpretation of that.
Yeah.
So what came to your mind?
Well, in my mind, the idea was kind of I was looking more at the kind of in the monsters, but I was looking at more. I wasn't looking at your, I've said Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. Those would all be considered. Some people would say they are movie monsters. They're not the kind of ones that I was looking at. Or I was interested in actual like people that have gone through a change or a manifestation of evil, or a creature that is evil, or just more of your, I guess creature features was in my head, like kind of thing, like that kind of like more that kind of monster in kind of my films.
Yeah, okay.
Like they're necessarily like a person that is an evil person, like a monster kind of thing. Like I guess monsters is more makes me think of like Universal's monsters and things like that, like a vampire, werewolf thing, which some of those I would say creatures, and then some of them I was like, I'm not sure, maybe those could be ones I chose, but I kind of stayed away from a lot of those standard ones, I think.
Yeah, okay, cool. I kind of had an interpretation of obviously kind of bad guys in movies. But things that I would not like to be coming after me. So, there are certain, I do have one kind of undead creature. I've got something kind of like a curse, maybe. Okay. And I've got something that terrifies me to this day, which I hadn't thought about for a long time. And then something happened recently and it triggered the memory, and then I got terrified all over again. But I think I started the horror hot takes. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Put the pitchfork down because it's all tongue in cheek. And I will let Epo take us away with his first kind of creepiest horror monster.
Okay, I'm going to go with my first one is going to be Brundlefly from The Fly.
That's a beautiful.
So our lovely David Cronenberg's The Fly remake, where he takes the concept of the original monster, The Fly, which was much more of your classic kind of creature kind of feature in the original, a little bit more straightforward in the fact that it's this bug that is literally kind of chasing them around, and instead David Cronenberg took it in a much more kind of body horror kind of route with Jeff Goldblum, our favorite of all time, Jeff Goldblum, sexy all the time.
He is
sexual man.
He is a sexual man.
I rewatched this film recently, The Fly, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I forgot how effective as a creature, but also because the reason that this one works really creepily is because it has this overwhelming feeling throughout of that your body could change into something unnatural. Yeah. That your body could be, or by trying to make yourself better, you could actually make yourself so much worse. And that's kind of almost as creepy as what he becomes, is the fact that you get to see this journey where like Brundle, as we call it, or the Brundlefly, as he becomes, the Dr. Brundle, starts to realize that what he's created, at first he's in this kind of obviously that one fly that gets in the machine, but he starts to go on this kind of journey of, at first I'm overwhelmed with power, and he's kind of I'm better than you, and you've got Gina Davis in the film who that was one part I completely forgot. She did actually a really good performance in the film. I forgot how good the film actually was. But that creature's journey, where it's got Jeff Goldblum, and he's doing, one point he's at a very sexual stage.
Yeah, he's fucking, isn't he?
And then he's lifting like huge weights beyond his, like that of a fly. But it's more in that kind of later stage, I think, where the real creepiness and the scariness of it kind of comes in, when he starts to realize that no, this is wrong, and he really starts to become deformed.
So gross.
You have some strong horror elements that come with the power, such as when he breaks the guy's arm in the wrestling match and literally tears, it snaps that arm right on, like that bone cracks hard. That's like violent. But as he starts to get all of the blistering skin, and the hairs start to really grow, and you've got that vomit, and the layer of like oiliness to the body and the skin, and it creeps you out in that way. And I think the creepiest part is that this is a creature that is both, it's scary when you look at him. He's creepy as hell. He is a scary thing to look at. But you've got that nice underlayered depth to it.
Yeah.
The idea that you could become something else, that by your aspirations of trying to do something new, you're actually going to like God territory and shouldn't go there, and your body could change into something that you can't control. But there's also a nice kind of thing of like idea of like deformity that could come, or the accidents that anyone could have that could change your body, or the diseases that are very real diseases that can give you things that can make you not into a fly but can make your body change. And it's that fear I think everyone has, that one day they're going to wake up and that their skin's going to have changed, or that that they're really going to have some kind of something that's going to happen to deform them in some way, and how are they going to accept themselves. And at first there's the idea of he can change it, but as the film goes on, you get the idea that he starts to get that idea of a little bit more of the hopelessness that's going to come with this, and that I'm too far gone. Which culminates in finally getting that actual kind of human fly, the Brundle fly, kind of at the end, when he just looks like that horrible kind of like, well, it's a fly, but it's the human skin element of it, and the fact he's standing up, and he's literally like, but it is literally the point where it's not your classic creature where, like in the original, it's more a little, in the original, like the Fly kind of film, there's a bit more of he's going to come after you, or he's going to change him, so he's going to come and get you kind of thing. Whereas they don't go down that road here. It is the idea that he is literally like, he's like the beast kind of thing. You know what I mean? He's the monster that's hidden away, trying to save himself. And when he can't, he finally has to accept the fact, and he's the one that kills himself. Because it's like, we've got to end that. You've got to shoot me. Like he puts the gun to himself. You've got to like kill me in his bug form. But there's something so there's a disgusting body horror element here. This is as I've recently watched quite a few Cronenberg films, but this is where Cronenberg really balanced all of this, where things had gone a little bit crazy at time, or he couldn't balance the acting or the plot at times. And everyone, this is where he perfected those elements. He got everything right. The acting is superb. The special effects, the body horror element is superb, but also the story works really well and clearly. And the themes. While improving. Like, this is one of those that you can say up there with like The Thing, The Fly, where it's one of those where it's better than the original. Yeah, you almost feel like it's what the original almost wanted to be. Because in the original, it's just a guy with like a fly's head, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's what, like, it takes that idea, but it does take it to some more depth that you kind of might not have been seen back at the time. You wouldn't have thought, and you wouldn't have thought to the graphic nature of Cronenberg's mind. But the Brundle fly is a disgusting, creepy creature. It's a good one. It was. I was thinking of having it on mine, but I went for one which I think it's creeped me out ever since I saw the film, and this is where I kind of. They technically they were human, but they're not, and it's Blake and his crew from The Fog. I think the film kind of tells the story on the eve of the 100th anniversary of Antonio Bay, and it's all about the kind of the curse that's kind of on Antonio Bay,
when the city was established, there was a leper colony that wanted to come, and
we said leprechaun.
A leprechaun that wanted to come, or a leopard colony, both you would want. So they kind of lead them into the rocks and kill them, and it's about how they get their revenge. And I think it's one of John Carpenter's best films. I think it's definitely got some amazing performances, but there's something about the Revenants that I think are just so creepy and so incredible. And it starts with the fog itself. It's so thick, it's so dense, it's just fucking creepy. You have this tiny coastal town, and that when this fog comes, that the trouble isn't far behind, and the Revenants are in there. One of the things that I like most about it is we don't really see them, which I think is beautiful from Carpenter, and it builds it so well, because when we do see them, we only ever see, for instance, a rotten hand. We see the outlines. For instance, one of the most iconic shots, I think, is when they're finally in the church and they're going to get Father Monroe, and you see all of them stood there, and the only thing you can really properly make out is Blake's like bright red eyes. And I just think it's so creepy. And there's not just is kind of the imagery that's really creepy, and we get some amazing shots of it, but I also think that maybe because they're slightly tragic figures, and that they're back with a vengeance. It's like zombies, but zombies, instead of shambling around and being relatively stupid and being able to escape them, they know what they want, and they're back for vengeance, and you can't escape. You are trapped. And I found it creepy.
There's an amazing. It's Carpenter is best atmospheric. Like he can use the just suspense that he had in his earlier films to like the maximum here, because it is all about what you can't see at times, what is distorting your vision. Are you seeing what's actually there? Are these monsters, these creatures, are they actually there? Am I seeing this properly? It's what you see, and it plays on a classic horror of the idea of like when it is that misty morning or that dark night. It's like, am I seeing this correctly? Or am I seeing that in the distance? Like, have I just seen something or not? It's really like, it is one of those, it plays into your mind really well.
And then when we get to a later scene where, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is trapped in a car, and it's just fog everywhere. And in the background, you can see them. And it's almost has the fog almost has this lighthouse effect where you'll have a strobe kind of light, like a big swath of light, and then you'll see them. And then it'll go again and they'll be closer. And I think the running theme throughout mine are things being after you, relentlessly coming towards you. So that is my first one. Is Blake and his crew from the fog.
Very good, very good. My second one is. Now, I've gone for something that was standard, but I didn't want to go. So I've gone for a face hugger.
Okay.
So instead of going for the xenomorph, the more the more celebrated of the ones, I've gone for the face hugger. Because I think, one, that's how we get our aliens.
That's true.
Anyway. But there is something extremely terrifying, I think, in the face hugger. Although the aliens are very terrifying themselves. I think there's just something about the face hugger that has this level of anxiety in the films.
Well, they look gross to start with.
I feel like they don't get as much love as the xenomorph, but they look amazing. But there's this odd element of this kind of that come with a face hugger in Alien or any of the Alien franchises. Can be to any of them, because there are plenty of good uses. In the original, there's not too much use, but as the sequels went on, there is some really good use of how they can be like the way that you can be trapped, or the way that they're kind of sneaking around, or they can come after you. Like, they're not, obviously they're one and done. Once they've done their implanting, but there's something about the idea, that kind of, well, I guess like the penetration of it, the kind of, that kind of invading inside of you, like coming inside
you. I mean, they kind of are.
I mean, there is something in the design and the idea. There is something very kind of almost sexual about. Yeah, there is. I mean, just like the xenomorph head is almost like a penis.
It's a bit like a dog, isn't
it? But no, there's something I think that's extra terrifying about the facehugger, that you won't see them coming, that they do kind of come after them, but you just never know. Like they're that little part. The xenomorph, yes, they can hide, and they hide above you, and they can be very sneaky in the darkness, and they've got amazing parts of them, but the facehugger is just something that most of the time the people never see coming, or they're in the situation where they're trapped and then they see the eggs, and you get the whole kind of the egg open, and you're like, what the fuck is inside of this? And like the terror that comes in those films when they have to just sit there and lie there as the eggs kind of start to form, and they're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, what are you, kind of thing? There's something creepy about this odd kind of impregnation that happens with a facehugger. And the process that follows it, because, you know, although we get the xenomorph out of it, the xenomorph it's the process of that kind of birthing, that pregnancy, that is the final like act almost of what the xenomorph has created. That chest buster is like, yes, the xenomorph coming alive and coming out, but it's also like that final birthing process of what the facehugger is put into you. So what they put inside of you and the way that they make you die is just a most disgusting but classic element of horror. And as much as you can put that to the xenomorph, I'd say it's the process that comes from the facehugger. Its own facehugger. That's you.
That is me.
That's when Bobby gets on top of you. He's a facehugger. It's that process that comes with it. And I think at times I feel like, although they may be a small element, but they are underappreciated about the amount of damage and massacre that they bring, but they also have that extra element, that kind of fear that you can be invaded, and kind of you know, that kind of almost like the rape that comes with them.
The way in which it kind of works is the single purpose, the whole purpose is to just implant
get that face,
get on that face, and the idea that they latch on and they choke you until you.
Yeah, so I mean, like you've seen in several scenes where the tail will literally wraps around the neck. So that's a horrible thing anyway. But your face, you can't see anything. You don't know what's happening. And by the time it hits you, you may not even realize what's going on. And then you're going to get something that's coming down your throat, being inserted inside your throat to place it inside. Like, because it is, in the visuals that I've seen, it is literally like a tube that really goes down there. Your throat, so you're getting that choke. It's that horrible. It's almost an odd, like, and it almost makes you think as well as almost like as if you were like in hospital and you have to have like a tube shoved down your throat. It's that horrible idea of like, this is unnatural and you're doing this to me. This is what you're doing to me, kind of thing. The facehugger, my underappreciated creepy creature.
Is it technically? Is it the little brother of the xenomorph or the daddy of the xenomorph?
I mean, I don't know if it's daddy or mummy, because I don't know if they're
mummy,
they're not
queen alien.
She makes the eggs, So he's kind of they're the sperm, they're the daddy, aren't they? They're kind of like they are kind of like the daddies. The queen lays them, but then it's like she lays a range of men to then go and make the pump.
It's really weird. So my second is the entity from It Follows, which I thought It Follows was an incredible film. It kind of I thought the film itself had a lot of interesting themes. You know, there's the kind of, some people looked at it through the themes of, commentary on sexual relationships and passing on of diseases, others in kind of anxiety and trust, and some people, and I kind of get it, when I read this take and I kind of look back on it, is the fear of aging and inevitable death and stuff. So I think in terms of the
sexual one is obviously quite clear, because it's in the
pass
film,
it on through sex.
The idea is,
and that
quite clearly there.
And that itself it's just so terrifying, mainly because it's a creature that continuously stalks whoever last has this kind of curse. And it's not, in a lot of films, for instance, we see somebody who has the curse, they die, and it's over until, I'm thinking maybe The Ring, somebody watches a video, something like this. This is, if you bang, you pass the curse on, and then that person dies and it comes back to you.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's continuous and it's always after you.
Yeah.
You know, eventually it's going to come back. And what I think is so creepy is that, it's relentless.
Yeah.
It keeps coming for you. It's constantly changing its form. So it could appear as all sorts of people. It appears as a person. So naturally it sows, paranoia and mistrust. Like if you see they do it well in the film, you just see someone walking. You don't know whether they're coming for you or whether it's just a person. So it's so incredibly done, it's so creepy. And
piece of horror.
and it just walks towards you until it gets you. And when it gets you, it kills you brutally, and then it just goes for the next person.
Yeah,
and I think it's the idea that you'll never be safe. You could, when I watched it, I thought, what would be the way in which you could get rid of it? And ultimately, I don't know if you can, because eventually people will let their guard down and it will get someone, and then it goes for the next person. And it's so,
I know a lot about this film, but This watched it. I've never watched it.
It's incredible, man. It's
I've heard it, and I've seen it on a lot of top lists, and I've seen this creature on a lot of lists, the entity. And I know all about the kind of the paranoia that's talked about, and the way that sexuality is used, and the fact that it uses inspiration from previous monsters, like you said, like the Thing and things like that. They will keep coming, but it kind of twists it into this really kind of these kind of human themes. These things that we go through every day are really quite obvious there. So it's interesting. I was going to literally watch it just the other night, and I didn't end up seeing it.
Oh man, it's brilliant.
I'll have to give it a go.
Yeah, it's like I put here. It's like the Terminator came after you for busting a nut. It's doesn't stop, man. It just keeps coming for you. But it's so well done, and the forms that it takes is, it takes some creepy forms, despite the fact that it's always a person. It takes creepy forms. There's one absolute weirdo in the film, which is kind of great. But it's just, I think it's the fact that you're never free from it. There are some movie monsters you'll be safe from. A vampire, for instance. You just don't let them in your house.
I mean the entity, it sounds like great use for overpopulation's a problem.
Maybe
it's a good way to get rid of it, and safe sex.
Yeah.
For the entity, let's start campaigning with it all over the posters.
It'll come for you.
This will come for you if you don't. Never, just don't have sex ever.
No teen pregnancy now. It just gets you. So over to because I think that's 2, isn't it? Both of us. So we will jump quickly over to the social media.
You were worried there that we're going to have a classic mix-up of numbers.
I did. I thought
we were going to get completely just confused by that.
Yeah, I thought we were going to do that, and then also I thought we'd miss the social media lounge because it's been a bit of a quicker episode, I think. So as always, over on Instagram and Twitter, we put out whatever the episode is, and we want to get people's kind of favorite movie monsters, that sort of stuff. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. So Adam Holloway, one of the writers for Shiver, his favorite is the Gremlins, which are great.
Gremlins was going to be my choice instead of the face hugger.
Yeah,
I decided, although I absolutely love them, it's such a great design. The Mogwai to the Gremlins, such an amazing kind of concept. But at the same time, it's more of a kind of a fun one. Not so much. I never found them quite as creepy or scary, I guess.
We had Katie from Horror Friendly Podcast, who I believe by the time we put this episode out should be back. So go and check them out. Hers was Psycho Gorman, who Psycho Gorman's awesome.
Yeah.
He's great. He's funny, but he's also terrifying. I
still have not seen that.
He's great. It's very.
It looked very. The trailer looked very tongue in cheek.
Yeah, we had Night of the Living Podcast, who suggested his boy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
We had Simon from the Sorry I Married a Horror Fan podcast. He's also said, my boy from the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Head of a creature. And then Zombie Derek's Rotten Brains had Critters, which is kind of like a Gremlins knockoff, isn't it?
Yeah, Critters. Unless we're wrong on that. To be fair, I don't know the date specifically. We could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Gremlins came first, but I could be wrong. We'll get a post saying Critters was first.
And then Epic Film Guys, who put the Werewolf, which is an absolute classic. I believe they put a bit from the transformation in The Howling, but werewolves in general are just incredible creatures, and I think we need more werewolf films, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point. Those are good lists. As I said, like there are so many different ones. Like I could have picked out any of the in their many different forms, but it's just like which one are you choosing? So from your mummies, your werewolves, your vampires, your Frankensteins, like I could have gone for any of the classic Universal horror, or I could have chosen a whole bunch of classic. I could have chosen Xenomorphs or Predator, or there were so many, but I didn't want it because I just feel like they were just obvious ones that it's like everyone knows these ones, and some of them I would say some of them are the creepiest, some of them aren't necessarily the creepiest. And I know that yours isn't I know that yours isn't going to be this one because you've already mentioned the area that your next one falls into. So I'm going to mention the one that came at the top of every list I looked at when I looked at this, and I can't help but kind of agree. This isn't my choice, by the way. This isn't my final choice. I didn't want to go for it purely because one, I thought maybe for you, and two, I just kind of thought, but I feel like it's a general consensus. So, what would you say the greatest creature in horror that's ever been made?
I would if I had to go off my head, I would say we had this conversation a few episodes ago. Probably Jaws from Jaws the Shark.
It could be or Bruce the Shark.
I call it Jaws the Shark.
Bruce.
My brain is small.
Bruce would definitely be up there. However, the consensus with the majority that I've seen, and this is pretty much every list I looked at, the number one creature, the Thing. The Thing was the top of pretty much every list to say that is the scariest. The fact that it's seems almost unstoppable. The fact that a drop of blood can, all of those things make it absolutely freaking terrible. So I wanted to give a shout out to the one that I do think in my head when I think about it and I think about how it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I
do think that, and not just in the way that it's shown in the John Carpenter film, to be specific, the way that it's shown in that film is absolutely terrifying. But that whole part of it, the concept. But as we've talked about in our Thing episode, go and find it, check it out. That idea of the blood and the fact that just one drop of blood could then just transform a whole thing, and you never know. You never know who's who, and the fact that anybody could be that creature and everybody could be taken over.
You don't know if
it's been done, like obviously in Body Snatchers, and lots of other ones have done it really well and stuff like that. But I just think that's the one that in the Thing that they pulled it off so perfectly. It's terrifying. It's a creature that looks amazing, is terrifying. So I think for me, I would probably agree. But Bruce the Shark is also, he is, in terms of suspense, that's probably the greatest suspenseful one that's ever been made.
I was considering the Cenobites. However, we've done, last month we did 2 episodes about Hellraiser, so I thought I won't include them because I think that they're terrifying. Again, not just in looks and not just in what they do, but conceptually, the idea of being taken to a plane or being taken to a part of hell where you're just tortured forever is a fucking nightmare,
Yeah. There are so many more kind of terrifying creatures out there that are just we've not touched on.
I mean, we will come back to it,
but we will come back around to creatures. Creatures will keep on popping up, or just general movie monsters will keep coming. I don't know why I'm looking at the phone. I don't need to, because I know what the one that I've chosen. It's not my top choice. It's just the ones that I picked out that I thought were interesting. And that is the Blob.
Okay.
So I watched them. So I was interested to look into it. So I remember seeing this when I was a lot younger, but not really remembering it. But I was always fascinated. So I'd seen the classic Steve McQueen one, the Blob, which I really enjoyed, and I'd always been interested in trying to remember what the newer one kind of looked like. But just in the concept of the Blob in general, because it's the original, especially seen as such a classic kind of like horror. So I was interested in like how that would work and how they'd work in different films. So I've watched both the 1958 and the 1988 film. So I watched them this week. And that was the creature. I was like, I kind of want to revisit that creature because I feel like that's one I want to talk about. And it's such an interesting, the idea of this meteorite that comes down, and out of it comes this kind of creature.
Yeah.
Just
to preface, I haven't seen either. I am familiar with the concept of the Blob, but I haven't seen either.
They are both worth checking out. They are really fun. The Blob is a really, obviously, because it's a bit more dated now, really accessible 1958 kind of one. But the stuff they do with the special effects are really, really quite cool. It is just this, obviously, this moving blob of like this reddish, pinkish kind of blob that moves around. But the fact that they were able to do it like 1958, the special effects they do with some of it are really quite interesting. The way it kind of squeezes through things, the way it moves around, the way you see it sliding under doors and then pull itself back. It was really cool kind of special effects. And the fact that the idea that literally if it just kind of touches you, it kind of attaches and it just starts to absorb part of your body. Now, in the original 58 one, it pretty much is a kind of, once it gets onto you, it will just start to absorb you. And as it gets bigger, it just starts to basically pull you straight inside and get absorbed. As it's smaller, though, at the beginning of the film, it attaches itself to like a man's hand kind of thing, which in the 88 does the same thing, but it's like a kind of more of a hobo's hand.
Or classic hobo.
It just kind of there, but you see it slowly in its small form. It's just attached to his hand and like, what the hell is this? And it starts to kind of build its way up the arm and take more and more and more. Now, it's still about the difference between, in the 58 one, that's kind of, it grows bigger and it starts to, it has like a big climactic, like through the streets, like this huge blob.
Yeah,
it starts to go over people and you see it sucking people up.
It's iconic.
Yeah, and the reason, so there's a good fit. So the original film, the 58 film, is a better film. It's a better structured film, more likable characters, more accessible. The 1988 film, directed by Chuck Russell and written by Frank Darabont,
old school,
and Chuck Russell. But so he's got part in that. So he's got a few kind of his regulars pop up in the film as well. But it's the way that in the 88 one that they do the Blob's actual what he does to people, it does to people, is what's really interesting. There's a twist on the idea that it's actually something that's come down from space. There's a kind of twist on the kind of germ warfare part.
I just love that you gendered the Blob.
Yeah, I was going to say it's they. I don't know what to say. The Blobists will be coming out after us.
The Blobists will be.
But in the 88 version, so it's not just the idea it absorbs you, it's actually like a kind of acid.
Oh, sure.
So it has scenes where literally, like on the guy's hand where he's like screaming and you see it going up. And then I don't want to ruin too much of them, but I will give you a general idea of the special effects. The special effects at times remind me of The Thing.
Oh, wow.
So they are literally like where you've got like people who are like in half, where it's literally like, it's eaten half of them and not got to finish the job kind of thing. It's got where someone's literally like fully absorbed into it. And literally you can see their body, like their skin melting away where they're getting absorbed like into the acid. So it's literally like it's like inside your stomach, like literally stomach acids inside of it, where you can literally see it breaking the person down, or people get sucked in and like their body's literally like one guy gets pulled into like a drain system.
No shit.
And you literally see like all of his arm like breaking through, his bones like cracking down as it's trying to fit through the kind of holes of the sitting stuff like that, and you see it like sucking it inside. Just really like cool. Like the best part about the 88 one is that visual and the fact that they've really leaned into the special effects of it. And it's got some fantastic. The 88 one I think you will enjoy purely just for that reason. Like the plot is a bit more straightforward. It's kind of like the loner kid who's like more the bad boy, and then you've got like the high school jock, and then you've got the girl who's played by Shawnee Smith out of Saw. Saw 2 and Saw 3. So you've got that kind of standard dynamic, and you kind of can see, but it does have some good twists on it. It has some good twists on like which character are we actually going to follow, in characters that die off like when you don't expect them to.
That's quite good.
Lots of interesting stuff like that, but the story overall is what brings it down. If it had a bit of a stronger plot and structure, it would be stronger. But the monster itself is actually, especially in the 58 one, it's pretty damn creepy, purely because there's such a level of that can't be that harmful, and that's not it, and you underestimate it. Whereas in the 88 version, it's freaking terrifying. The idea that even if you were to touch it, it starts to melt your skin kind of thing is freaking horrible. But the fact that this thing just like, you can't see it, you don't know where it's going to appear because it can literally just slide into any movement kind of thing. It has that same kind of atmospheric at times of The Thing kind of thing. The idea that this could pretty much get me from anywhere. And as it grows bigger, you're like, how the fuck are we going to escape this giant thing that's just literally like melting people?
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool. And the special effects are horrifying. It's really, that's what raises that 88 one, is like, shit, look at that. Special effects in the 58 one are fantastic as well, just for a different reason.
Yeah,
of how they were able to pull that off at that time was like, shit, that is really impressive. Both worth a watch this, both worth a watch for you.
Well, I'm going to have to
And you
watch
at home.
So my final one, and I told you I was a bit of a naughty boy, and I went away from the screen, well, you know, from movies,
from the big
screen to the littler screen, and I went to the PlayStation. Not just the PlayStation, as this game has probably been ported the most in human history, I imagine. And it is Dr. Salvador from Resident Evil 4.
Aha!
Yeah, so I've forgotten mostly about him. You know, every couple of years I'll replay Resident Evil 4 and then I'll just completely forget about it. You know, it's one of the best games ever, but I've played it so much that it just, you know, I forget. And then the Resident Evil 4 remake trailer came out.
Yeah.
And it reminded me all over again when I saw Dr. Salvador. And I just remembered the first time when I was maybe 12 or 13. Yeah. And I was playing Resident Evil 4. And it was a big shift for the series. And we were, you know, in third person with an over-the-shoulder camera. And
it was the first one to kind of introduce between like survival horror and a bit more action.
Yeah.
But a good balance, not
like
5 and 6 when it was pretty much more action than
horror.
I
still like 5, but
yeah.
And I remember the first time ever I went into the house and then I barricaded it. And to my horror, you know, we see a Ganado revving up a chainsaw, you know, with his burlap sack mask. Yeah. And ever since then, it's just relentlessly terrifying, you know. First time you encounter him, and you go for that safety in the opening chapters, and you don't even have a shotgun by then. You've just got a pistol, and then you see him several times later. You hear his scream, and then you hear the rev of the chainsaw.
Yeah,
and it's just disgusting. You know, that whole opening village section where you're running around, and all you can hear is his chainsaw. It's just pure adrenaline, kind of constant terror. The fact that, you know, if he catches you, he will just kill you in one
head locked off.
It's just head locked off, bop, gone, is terrifying. And he's an absolute bullet sponge. It's terrifying. And in the new one, he looks even more deformed. Apparently, under his mask, I had a look, it looks more fucked up.
Yeah.
He apparently now reacts more, so he will cut ways that you can escape down. He's harder to kill, you know. It's just going to be a nightmare all over.
There was something between them, was like Friday the 13th Part 2, Jason and Leatherface, that they kind of mixed together. There's a lot of that in Resident Evil, with a few ones where you've seen that they've taken like two more popular characters, or they've kind of blended them to make these kind of awesome. It's interesting because I'm literally playing Resident Evil this week. Yeah, I'm literally playing Resident Evil 4 right now. So I've revisited it. I'm playing on Nintendo Switch because I've had the games for like a year now and I never played them. So it's such a nice. We are. Where have I just got to? I've just lost. Why am I blanking on her name? Ashley. Ashley's just been taken in like a trap, like for a trap door.
In the castle.
Yeah, in the castle. Yeah. So we've just got to that kind of point. So. Not miles away.
Not miles. Yeah.
So yeah, I've very much been playing that all week. So my plan is to have that done by the end of the week. But I was literally, there were certain characters in that I was literally like, oh, do I go? I'm already blanking on this. Like, who is the tall guy that literally splits his body into like
Sadler?
When you play it, it's Sadler. That's one. Yeah. When you play it inside the barn and you fight him.
Oh no, that's
not Sadler. Yeah, Sadler is different.
The village chief. Yeah.
Yeah, the village chief. Yeah, him. He was one of them he was freaky as I thought. Like, I always remembered him. I also remembered the chainsaw ladies that you get like when you're stuck in the middle of like it feels like it makes it feel like an arena. It's not. It's like basically like
it kind
wooden
of is.
pallets you're going over. Like it kind of is, isn't it? Yeah. And you had kind of had them. I remember I played. Like I literally going up against her and didn't realize there was a second one and forgot about that. So I was literally like, I'm beating you, and then behind me just locks off my head like shit.
And it's so terrifying. And I think Resident Evil is one of my favorite series, and the game's full of grotesque, disgusting creatures. You know, you've got lickers, you've got tyrants, you've got hunters, Nemesis himself, old school.
Nemesis was almost. I was looking at Nemesis as well. He's a
but there's just something so grim about just a guy. I mean, he's obviously deformed and he's mutated, but just the brutality of just chasing you with a chainsaw. And I think it's the fact that you don't suspect it, and if you go into that house, which now I always do because I want the shotgun, I want to kill him. But at the time, you know, I think it came out in 2004, I think, so I was 12 years old, and I hadn't seen my brothers play that bit, so I was like, I didn't even know it was coming, and then it's just constant, you know, and I died to him so many times, and the terror is just still there, you know, even now. You know, I'm 30 and I play it and I hear that chainsaw and it triggers something in me and I'm like, fuck, I need to run. You know,
I was gonna say, when I was replaying, he was actually quite easy to defeat for me. I don't know if it changed, but I remember dying to him a lot. I don't know why. He was really straightforward to kill in this form. I don't know why. It was maybe because I could see him coming in this form, but
probably
Now it was, he is a great kind of. There are so many great ones, but yeah. Resident Evil 4 as well for me was always the one I remember because I remembered playing it on GameCube.
Yeah.
So I had that one on GameCube. So that one always stuck in my mind, and I remember that one creeping. Like the first couple all have definite creepy parts to them, but that one's the one I found the creepiest for me. I don't know why. There was something about the village setting, and the idea that all of them could change into these beings, and there was just so I found so creepy about that even though it was a bit more like upbeat, a bit more faster action. There was still that real creepy element. But really, he's a very cool creature. There are so many cool creatures in Resident Evil. Many, many games that I was looking at as well. I did look at a few games to be like, any of them, but I decided on classic.
And every time I play it, we have to. This is something me and my brother Dan did. Is the first time we killed him, you have to. After you've killed Dr. Salvador, you have to fire 2 shotgun shells in the air. I don't know why. It's just something that we had to do. 2 for Dr. Salvador, we'd say. Then we just shoot them up in the air, you know. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Do you have anything else to add, Epo?
No, we've covered our creature features.
We have. But, you know, this feature will return with more disgusting beasts, foul monsters, and other things that go bump in the night. But as always, we hope you've enjoyed the show. Please hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow. And if you could leave a lovely review, that's always good as well. And we will see you shortly. Take care. Bye-bye.